I'm going to go live.
What was that subbing class? I don't understand.
Hold on a second. What was that?
Your subbing class, it said in the thing.
Oh, that was just I was subbing for the Chabad Shliach in hold on, let me just make sure I get everyone's view here. Yeah. Oh, hey, Avi. I was subbing for the Shliach in Hebrew U, so I figured if anyone wants to join,
Oh,
so
okay.
join.
Good
Okay.
evening, everybody.
Good evening. All right. Again, so we have here the Sanhedrin from Rebbe Steinsaltz, and we're holding in middle of page Tzadik Daled Amid Beis, mamish towards the middle of the page, and we're middle of talking. We're learning about there's two subjects. I'm not sure how far we're going to get. There's a subject we're continuing with the battle of Nebuchadnezzar with Sanhedrin, the king of Assyria, and he started off with the 10 tribes, and he moved southwards towards southern direction towards hey Ariel, Mazel Tov, towards Yerushalayim. So he first conquered the north, and then he went towards Yerushalayim. Okay, so we're holding right over here where it says we have this is the Ariel. This is the similar to what you have. This is the Steinsaltz Even Yisrael Gemara. On PDF. So he says we're holding where it says in Tzadik Dal down base, my ka'es, he quotes a pasuk. So the pasuk says like this. It says ka'es harishon hekel arza zevulun v'arza naftali. So that he lightly afflicted. The hakel is from the word kal. The land of Zevulun, which is in the north, and the land of Naphtali, we know is the north. The Ramat Naphtali is on top of by the Galil. But ha'achron and the later one, so to say, hichbid derech hayam aver hayarden galil hagoyim. So, but the latter has dealt a more grievous blow, he says, by the way of the sea and beyond the Jordan, in the district of the Galil hagoyim, which is towards the south. So, what does that pasuk mean? So he says like this. The pasuk is referring to, it's all talking about Sanhedrin with his battle on, or his attempted battle on Yerushalayim. It says like this, like Rishonim, not like the early years, meaning the people from Zevulun and Naphtali that took off themselves, so to say. They lightened the yoke of Torah. They didn't follow the Torah the way they should. The later ones, that they took upon themselves the yoke of Torah, which is in a way of heaviness. And therefore, these people, meaning the ones who took upon themselves the yoke of Torah, we're going to see later what it means, the yoke of Torah that the people from the south took upon themselves. Therefore, they were worthy of a miracle. Like those who passed the sea, meaning those who went through the splitting of the Red Sea, like in Yetzias Mitzrayim, the exodus of Egypt. And those who went through the Jordan. So who went through the Jordan? The Jews went with Joshua through the Jordan, and the Jews went through Mitzrayim. They went through with Moshe. Now, what's the comparison between the people who took upon themselves the yoke of Torah in the times we're talking about, the times of King Hezekiah, with those who left Egypt, went through the sea, and those who went with Joshua and Yeshua into Eretz Yisrael? So, because the Farshim say that when Yeshua, we know how much he learned. We learned before that even during the night when he was battling, he would learn Torah. And the Jewish people left B'tziacha, right? What was the idea of leaving Eretz Mitzrayim? God said to Moshe by the burning bush that you're going to leave Mitzrayim to come serve God on this mountain, is Matan Torah. The whole purpose of going through the Red Sea was to go to Matan Torah. So there's a connection to Torah both in those who went through the Red Sea and those who went through the Jordan. And then now God is continuing to talk to Sanhedrin. So don't think that you took the north and you conquered the north and you exiled the 10 tribes. But you have to know they lightened on themselves the yoke of Torah, whereas the south they took upon themselves in a heavy way the yoke of Torah to mamish to the extreme we're going to see. So if you go back and don't try to go south to take Yerushalayim, good. And if not, I'm going to make Eselei Galil Bagoyim. He's going to be like a Galil, a wallowing in shame among the nations, because what's going to happen is going to be tremendous destruction for Sanhedrin. I'm just going to do the Rashis. He says, Case Harishain Hakal Arzer Zevulun v'Arzer Naphtali. Like Rishain Maseres Shvatim. You can't compare. It's God is speaking to Sanhedrin. You can't compare the success, so to say, that he had with the 10 tribes. The people that you're going for now, meaning the south, which is the kingdom of David of Yehuda, is Amesh Chizkiyo, the nation of Chizkiyo. They took upon themselves the yoke of Torah. He's saying that this means to say that the people of the south are worthy to have a miracle, just like the people who passed through the sea and those who went through the Jordan. So Hashem says, if he's going to go back, Mutav is good. When Tzaddik Da'al days, that he's going to have a shame. And that's what happened, by the way, as far as I understand. Sanhedrin, when he went back, he didn't. I don't think Sanhedrin himself was killed. When we're going to see the big miracle that happened when he camped outside Judah, outside Yerushalayim, but he definitely, I think his sons killed him. He lost his kingdom. Okay, so now we continue the pasuk. The pasuk says in Divrei Yomim, it says Achri Hadvarim v'Emes Eila. So it's not a typical term. The Achri Hadvarim v'Emes Eila. After these words, these true words. Sanhedrin, so it means God said to Sanhedrin, don't go south. Even though he had prophecy, we learned last week he had prophecy from Shavnai that he should go south. So he says, so the king of Sanhedrin, the king of Asher of Assyria, he comes, he goes into Judah. He takes camp on the cities of Betsaris, and he says he was looking to he was looking to breach into Yehuda. Hi Rishon, hi Pardashna. So the Gemara says for this gift, both of them, Risha is a gift. So it says the gift, the Risha, is for the gift of Chizkiyahu, meaning to say that this is what he brought Chizkiyahu, is to have to deal with Sanhedrin. So what does this all mean? So see Rashi's and explain. He says like this: Acher hadvarim ve'emes eila. So he says after these true words, hashta mashma. So seemingly, what the pasuk is saying, sheyimedaber b'chizkiyahu shayu oisek oiskim b'Torah. And after we learned that we just said before that Chizkiyahu learned Torah. So Sanhedrin v'melech Asher v'yav b'Yehuda came to attack Yehuda. V'yichan al harim v'yom livakim elav. He was looking to destroy them, to conquer them, breach the. So what's high Rashina l'high Pardashna? V'chimevin durin kazela adin kazad. Does it make sense to bring a gift, meaning Sanhedrin? The pasuk doesn't make sense. He's saying that Sanhedrin Chizkiyahu did right. He taught Torah, so this is the gift you're bringing him. This is what he has to deal with. He has to deal with Sanhedrin. Right? This is the question in life. This is a person does good. Why is he dealing with complications? So he says, we'll skip the words over here. He says like this. So the Gemara answers, Achrei Dvar ve'emes, Achrei Mai. What's it mean after what? What are we talking about? So Amar Ravina says, La'achet shekafetz kadosh baruch hu v'nishba. God made a promise. Amar I amina le'chizkiyahu. God figured like this, that sometimes in life, you have a person, Hashem wants to bring a tremendous Yeshua, a tremendous salvation. So what is the benefit of the salvation? Sometimes you have to go through difficulties to get to the salvation. So the question is over here, Hashem says to Chizkiyahu, God made a promise. If I'm going to tell Chizkiyahu, I'm going to bring here Sanhedrin. I'm going to give him to you. I'm going to make a big miracle. So Sanhedrin is going to come. There's going to be terrifying times. You have to remember, it wasn't like Sanhedrin, like Chizkiyahu sat there with a lack of stress. He needed to build tremendous bitachon to be able to deal with the people were terrified of Sanhedrin, of the power of Sanhedrin. So he would tell me, he would say to me, he would answer me, don't bring him, don't bring your delivery, don't bring me the Yeshua. Better keep Sanhedrin where he is, and I don't have to deal with him. Why are you telling me that you're going to bring Sanhedrin and he's going to fall into my hands? So in the case of Paroi, right? So Paroi, there was no choice. He had to get rid of Paroi. He lived among them. But here Sanhedrin is in the north. Why do you have to bring him south and tell me that you're going to give him to my hands? The Rashi, Chizkiyahu would rather not have to deal with it. Most people would take that approach in life, right? The Rashi says, Ravina says, "My acher dvarim v'emasayla acher shekavtz kadosh baruch hu v'nishvul havis Sanhedrin." So now we translate the pasuk to be nifli, not that after God told Sanhedrin not to go, but after God promised that He's going to bring Sanhedrin. Notwithstanding, He's not going to ask Chizkiyahu. When God makes a promise, hold on, Aaron. When God makes a promise, it's true, and therefore there's nothing you could do, and that's what Hashem wanted. Yes.
Is this the same Pharaoh from Passover story?
No, I was just comparing. I was comparing Pari to it's not. I'm just giving a comparison. But in general, the Pari was a name of the kings of Egypt.
Right, but I wanted to know which one.
No, I'm not. I was just talking about the Pari of Egypt. That just like when the Jewish people had to leave him, so it's a similar concept. Okay.
Gotcha.
So the Gemara is like this: Miyad kafetz kadosh baruch hu v'nishba. Right away, God. Sorry about that, guys. God jumped up and He promised the Ma'aseh he's going to deliver. He's going to bring Sanhedrin, notwithstanding if Chizkiyahu is going to want or not. He's going to bring himself. So Nemar Nishba Hashem Tzvois Leimar Imloi Kasher Demisi Kein Ha'isa VeKasher Yatzti He Takim Lishbar Asher. That this guy's texting nonstop. So he says like this, that God made a promise like this. Nishba Hashem Tzvois Leimar. God made a promise. Imloi Kasher Demisi Kein Ha'isa VeKasher Yatzti. So the Lord of the host has taken an oath, saying, "It's not as I imagined it, so it has come to pass, and as I have proposed, so shall it arise." Meaning, God's making all these levels of promise. Lishbar, to break Ashur. Ashur again is Sanhedrin, is Assyria, but Arsi, that he has to die here, meaning he has to fall in Eretz Yisrael. Al Hari Avusenu, and upon the mountains we subdue him. V'sar Maleim Oilei V'subale Me'al Shichma Yaser. And then shall his yoke depart from them, and his burden depart from its shoulders. Meaning to say that sometimes the only way to deal with something is to confront something, right? This is regular psychology, right? So people don't want to, better not, better. I'd rather not have to deal with it. Don't bring him here. Let him continue doing what he's doing in the north or wherever else. He was conquering the whole world. He conquered Egypt. He conquered the whole world, Sanhedrin, for the time that he was king. So. Shekoach, Ariel Green, we have the baby here. Welcome. So Rabbi Yochanan says that Yaveh Sanhedrin v'siyate v'yasu evus l'Chizkiyahu v'lisiyate. So Rabbi Yochanan said that what does this mean? The Holy One, blessed be He, said Sanhedrin and his entourage shall come and be transformed into like a thorough avus, which is for Chizkiyahu and his entourage, which we're going to learn means that the substance. First of all, two things. Number one is Chizkiyahu was very religious and very Torah conscious, and he wanted the Jewish people to learn Torah. We're going to see a lot in the Mamish, tremendous amount of Torah in his times. It was like on the highest level of study of Torah. Because of that, there was a lack of finance. I mean, people weren't working so hard, and they gave up their work for studying Torah. Because of that, there was a lack of material. So Sanhedrin coming actually filled the gap of what the people needed to live. So had he never come, it's not just that God wanted Ashur to fall, so he should fall. You have to deal with the problem, but also practically that there should be a benefit that the Jewish people needed. Had Ashur and had Assyria never come to Israel to the south, so he would have fallen there, would have nothing to do with the Jewish people. Like this, he came, he brought his whole army, not just his whole army, he brought all his wealth and all everything, and food and animals and all that. So when they were killed, so all that went transferred over to the kingdom of Yehud, and they had abundance of materials. So therefore Hashem, so there's two practical parts. One is in order to break something, you have to deal with it, bring it down to Eretz Yisrael, and although it was hard times, pressuring times, stressful times, but at the end the big miracle happened. So he says like this. So Rashi says, that they were basically everything died, and the people died, so everything kind of was a heap of bodies, and they were able to take the raw materials. Okay, so Marsha says it's not just it's more of an example. It doesn't mean that they actually ate the horses or the animals. You don't eat the horses. Shrabi, eating the horses more means. And it says vayachilu susayim ubehemtem behemtem, to eat the animals makes sense. Susayim, unless you're starving, halachically you can't obviously eat the susayim. So to use them as probably means more. And the Mashal says it's really an example, just giving a mashal. Okay, so he says like this. Who will continue. The pasuk says like this: like we said before, you're going to take off this the burden from your shoulders and from your neck. So it says v'chubal ol mipnei hashemen, and it says that I'm going, and the yoke from your neck, and the yoke shall be destroyed due to the fatness. Shaman is fatness, means shaman is also means fatness. So what does that mean? Rabbi Yitzchak Nafacha says that chubal oil shel Sanhedrin pnei shamnoi shel Chizkiyahu. It does shaman can mean fat, shaman could also mean oil. So he says that Rabbi Yitzchak Nafacha says what brought down the yoke of Sanhedrin was the oil of Chizkiyahu. What's the oil of Chizkiyahu? Because the people sat and learned Torah a whole day, so they needed a lot of oil. And they burnt the oil so they could study at night Torah. And it's the oil, meaning representing what they used the oil for, the studying of Torah, that the Jewish people did in the time of Sanhedrin, that was a merit for why Sanhedrin fell. We're not going to get into politics, but this conversation is happening today while we talk in the Knesset about this concept of what's the power of Torah. So the Gemara says that what destroyed Sanhedrin was the oil of the yeshivas of studying in the Bate Knesset, Bate Midrashis, that they sat in the yeshivas and the shuls. What's the difference in the shuls and the yeshivas? The daven, and also people, the worker people, the people who worked also took off time after davening to have a shiur. So what does that mean? Why are we attributing this to Chizkiyahu? It says Shamnei shel Chizkiyahu. It says the oil of Chizkiyahu. Why doesn't it say, I guess, the oil of the Jewish people? So what did Chizkiyahu do to enforce or to emphasize the importance of learning Torah, to put it lightly? So he put a sword as a sign of discipline by the door of the study hall, the Beis Medrash. And he says, whoever is not going to study Torah, Yidakar b'cherev zu, is going to be stabbed with this sword. But so what was the effect of this engrossment of Torah? I mean, you have to remember, Chizkiyahu it wasn't like he was going generations of studying Torah. His father was not a good king. I think he was Achaz, and his son Menashe was again a horrible king. So Imamish was in between when there was no study of Torah. So in that little period of time of his kingdom, that period, whatever it is, 20, 30, 40 years, however long Chizkiyahu was king, he made sure everyone studied Torah to the extreme. And whoever didn't study Torah, he says, Yidakar b'cherev zu, gets stabbed. Batku, and they checked to see the effect of his decrees of studying Torah. Midon means from the north. That Dun is what we call today the Tel Aviv area, right? V'ad Beersheva, all the way south to Beersheva. V'leimatzu amaretz, there was no ignorant person, which is an amazing thing if you think about it. Because not everyone is able to study Torah. Here it says that he found that no matter what the person's level was, everyone was able to absorb enough Torah to not be called an Amoritz. And it's not just Amoritz mean to say you're an ignorant person. There's halachics about an Amoritz, about Tumatara, about what that person could you trust Amoritz, because the Amoritz, the person who's simple, doesn't know the law. And they checked from Givat until Antipras, 2 places. Leimatsu tinoik v'tinoikis, it's even more. They didn't find a young boy or girl, or ish v'isha, a man or a woman, like I said before, that they weren't experts in the laws of purity. Now, how complicated the laws of purity are. And we learn with those of us who learn the Rambam daily. That's the hardest part. The laws of Tumatari. You have to know, not just to know it. You have to be careful. Your whole mannerism, what you touch, what you don't touch, when you could touch something, when you could eat something. It's another level of awareness and consciousness in your behavior that's way beyond anything we're conscious today. So here it says, they didn't find one young boy or girl or man or woman who weren't bikin, experts in the laws of Tumatara. So Rashi says, okay, Givat and Antiperes, Antifras is Mekaimis Shv'Seifat Chumim. They're levels of the border. Rabbi Steinzalt says that Antipras is the city in northern Judah, located near the source of the Yarkon River, which is also the Yarkon River, if I'm not mistaken. And he says over here, located in the modern town of Rosh Ayin. It's a little further. It's not Tel Aviv; it's more east. And And Givat is unclear, although the commentaries agree that it is located southern Judah, some assert that is adjacent to the Dead Sea. Again, not Beersheba. So Dan and Beersheba is kind of a line going from the west south, and Rosh Ayin to the Dead Sea would be more east, and then going more east all the way to the Dead Sea. Whereas the others say that it was a village just north of Beersheba. Okay, it makes more sense the first one, because why would they be calling the two same areas by different names? So it makes sense that he checked kind of the western line going north to south and the eastern line going north to south. So they found that there was no ignorant, and that not only that, he found that everyone was experts in the laws of purity. I'm not sure if it means that everyone means that both people were the same, or different people who live in different areas had different effective Torah. Let's see if the commentaries say anything over here. Yeah, the Gemara he brings down the Yalkut Shimoni that talks about that Rabbi Elazar Midoi says he brought down like a kruvim, he brought down like angels to enforce Torah. Now, and on that generation, the Gemara says, continuing of the effective of Chizkiyahu's teaching of Torah. Al Oisei Hadar, who Oimer, in that generation, the generation of Chizkiyahu, it says, that it will come to pass on the day the man shall nourish a young calf and 2 sheep, which is a very small amount. It means to say that they're not going to have a lot, because they're going to be studying Torah. There should have been 1,000 vines at the value of 1,000 silver coins, so were like thorns. Even though it should have had value, but they weren't working the land, they were studying Torah. Okay, this could open up a conversation about this, obviously, about how this was. But the miracle was that's why God had to bring Sanhedrin, because Sanhedrin went down to fill the gap. Otherwise, there was lack of resources. Like Rashi says, "Af elf gefen ve'elf kesef shehem yikarim she'en them roiv kramim afilu hachi lashamer v'lashayis yishem anichin eisen la'avdinu u'mebayrim eisen v'ya'iskim b'Torah." They left their fields, they left their vineyards to study Torah, and therefore it says like this. So when Sanhedrin came down and there was going to be the destruction of Sanhedrin, and he's going to leave all his. It's not the first time. We had also in the northern kingdom. In Achav's time, we read about it in the Haftarah recently. No, that there was sorry, half a year ago. I was thinking recently. We read about in Tazri Mitzayra about when they camped outside the north. Also, there was a big noise, and the nations left all their food, and they were able to deal with the famine. So it says Usav shlalachem ba'oisef hachosil. What does that mean? Then your spoils shall be gathered like the gatherings of the locust. So Amalam Navi Yisrael, the prophet Ben Yeshaya told the Jewish people after the victory of over Sanhedrin, Isvu Shalachem, go take shalom, go take spoils. It means everyone should go take spoils from the huge camp. He came with a tremendous army, not just army. He came in an arrogant way. Those days they would travel. They wouldn't. Today it's almost similar to. Again, to avoid not the politics of it, just the fascination of it. Of when the U.S. Army left Afghanistan, the amount of what they left of machinery and trucks and of American-made products that were just left there because they didn't take it back with them. So too, when Sanhedrin came, he came with a tremendous amount of resources, and now they ran away and they were destroyed. So the prophet says, "Yisrael shalachem, go take shalom, take spoils." So they asked him, should we each spoil it? I mean, should we each go run and grab each person what they can, or should we take it in a systematic way and divide it? So he says, he answered to them that like you gather in a locust, each person grabs for himself. Just if a person is taking in the locust, you take each person for themselves. Also too, when it comes to the spoils, each person should take themselves. Why doesn't say why that was the decision to do that? But they asked how should we take it in? Should we divide it or not? Or should we divide it equally. So Rashi says, Kol echad l'shalal, kol echad la'atzvei elach biyachid. Should we, like Rashi says, should we bring it in together and divide it equally, or each person takes for themselves? Shnishar Michal Sanhedrin. This all talking about was left over from the army. Lach lecha cherim ma'ashanu shaylim avlanu asurim ba'isei shalal shemamin shebazu masayis shvatim urbai deika mishum gezel. So the Rashi explains that what they're asking is not if they should divide it amongst themselves. Lashon Acher is that maybe we should divide it to other people, because we're going to see in a second that they were concerned to take. They were very Torah conscious people, and they were scared to take the spoils of Sanhedrin, thinking that because Sanhedrin, where did he get all the spoils from? A lot of it came also were mixed in it, the spoils he took from other nations, including the 10 tribes. And the 10 tribes were the brethren, were the Jews. And they felt that if they're going to take from the spoils of Sanhedrin, they're going to be benefiting from the robbery. I mean, he stole all the goods of the 10 tribes. So they said, maybe we shouldn't touch it. Maybe we should give it to other nations. That's what Rashi says. So that's why the question would make more sense. So Amrulai, so they said to, when Yeshaya said, no, each person should take for themselves. So no matter, however you're going to look at Rashi, either to take and not divide amongst themselves, or to take and not divide, not to give to others. So Amrulai, so they said to him, 1 second, that this is not all our money. It's money that belongs to the 10 tribes. So Amrulahem, so he said, Kim Mashik gave him shaykik by, that as the advance of the locust shall he advance, meaning to say, Ma gave him halalam alan adam itum l'tara, that just like the pools, the mikvah, could take a person and separate, and once a person goes into a mikvah, so then they become pure. A mikvah makes a person pure. It says halachically that once Sanhedrin took ownership of it, it's no longer, it became pure. What does it mean pure? It no longer belongs to the Jewish people. Because these are halachic questions of yish. When someone loses something and it's stolen from them, and there's no, and not only the case of the 10 tribes, they weren't even around to ask for it back. They were exiled or killed or whatever. So it became ownership of Sanhedrin. He purified it. Says the ownership no longer belonged to the 10 tribes, and therefore it was not a problem for the Jews to take from the spoils. That why were they able to? In talking about when the Jewish people left Eretz Yisrael, left Mitzrayim on the way to Eretz Yisrael. So even though God said that they weren't allowed to take anything from Ammon and Moav, because God said you shouldn't bother them, but Sichon, who took them over, so then it kind of got elevated, and then it became purified. It became permissible for the Jewish people to take. So he says like this. Hey Ariel, he says that Rashi quotes the idea of the mikveh Kimesek avam sheshayik ba'ashka shal tinorim zalfim b'mayim nevim hashko ba'isem mamen tiru dama tinorim salol l'malan sa'adim mitum l'tar. Just like a mikveh can purify something that becomes impure. They tefillah through going to the mikveh, through immersing in the water. After minim, so to the money gets purified by the ownership of Sanhedrin. Aaron, you trying to ask a question?
Yeah. What are these items that you're talking about that they're going to split, not split? Then is it really important what each individual item is to the story?
No, it doesn't say. It's just the spoils. There was all kind of whatever they came with animals, money, gold, silver. They came with a lot of food. They travel heavy, so they travel. Although we're going to learn we're going to learn that he traveled fast, but he traveled fast and heavy. And because he traveled heavy, he had a lot of goods. He had a lot of spoils. So the prophet was saying that they should divide. They should each one take themselves. It doesn't say why. According to the second answer of Rashi, it makes a little more sense. That when their question was about the spoils for that, if they should not take from the spoils at all, just give it to someone else. So he said they should take it. But according to the basic translation of the Gemara and Rashi's initial translation is that they were just wondering how they should divide it. Should they divide it equally? It's not so simple. We have the laws of war. See, this is the question. The question when you have a war. So the halacha is, we learn from Avram, right? It says Moshe learned from Avram. King David learned from Avram. How are you supposed to divide the spoils? That someone could say that if they're the front line people, that they're the first to advance forward and they get the spoils, What about the people that are behind, the people that are not even fighting, the people that are watching the armament? Do they not share in the spoils? From the fact that Avram, when he conquered the four nations, the five kings, the four kings, he took the money and he gave it to Mamre and the people that were watching, so to say, the armament. So from there, King David learned that everyone has to take divide. So seemingly they were asking that question: how do we divide? In what manner do we divide the spoils? But in this case, it wasn't really a war; it was God did the war. So therefore, he says each person go out and take what they need or what they can. All right. So Rav Huna, now we're continuing in the battle. So Rav Huna said like this: that Eser Masais Naisa Oiser Rashi Baisa. We're going to learn in a second that basically, again, those days was it wasn't like they didn't just work on strategy of the army academy strategy, but they also had stargazers and they had people that were kind of trying to tell them if this is. I mean, Paro, we know all this from Paro. We know this from Bilam. Bilam says Yedei Daskelia Elyon, that you have to know when's the moment that that the Jewish people are vulnerable, right? So Bilam also knew, and Balak knew when is there a vulnerability to the Jewish people that maybe we could curse them. And Pari also was checking with the stargazers what's going to be, and he said Moshe is going to die in the water. That's why he threw all the people in the water. They didn't know that he means dying in the water of hitting the rock. But so too over here, Sanhedrin had stargazers who told him he had a certain day that by that day he had to get to Jerusalem to conquer it. So when he heard that, so I'm just giving a little information so we'll understand why he ran so fast. So when he heard that, Amar Rav Huna said, Eser Masais Nasa Rash he traveled 10 travels. Means usually you travel at a pace, especially the size army, and he was loaded with goods. So nevertheless, he ran very fast. His army ran very fast. 10 travels in one day. And how do we know? So he quotes a pasuk. The pasuk says, "Ba'al alias avar b'migrain lemichmas yafkit kelev avru ma'abara geva malan." These are all places. Lanu charda harama givas shaul nasa tzali koilech basgalim hakshiva laishna aniya anasasai nadida madmeina yeshve hagevim heizu. And then he goes until oid hayom benov lamed. What's benov? This is the famous prophecy that we read on the last day of Pesach about the prophecy of Mashiach. But what happened? He wanted to get to Nov on that same day. Nov is referring to Yerushalayim. Nov is also those who are familiar with the story. King Saul killed the city of Nov, all the Kohanim, the priests. That's the whole story here. The untold part of the story that we're about to discover is why did he have to rush? Was that God still needed an accountability for what happened in Nov. Nov happened 250 years before. We find this a lot of times, right? We find the 10 rabbis that were killed by the Romans, right? What happened? He said that there hasn't been any consequences for selling Yosef. Yosef was sold 1,000 years before the story of the destruction of the Second Temple, at least, right? So never the same thing over here. The story of Nov, there's never been accountability for it. Saul killed the whole city of priests. So he was told he has to get Oid Hayoim today, Benov. He has to lamed. He has to stand today by Nov. And Yinoifef Yadei Harabayis Tzion Givis Yerushalayim. So he shall shake his hand against the mountain, the daughter of Zion, and the hills of Jerusalem. So Rashi says, different places. Rashi says, Avram Ever given Malin Lanu, Yeshve Hagavim Haizu Vleika Chashiv, Oida Yom Benov Lamed, Ahu Lav Masa, Hu Elek Damrin Lakaman, Oisa Yem Nishtar Oinishal Noiv. Until that day, they had the issue of Nov. He didn't go into Nov. It means the 10 travels, he didn't try to conquer Jerusalem on that day. That was his mistake. That when he traveled very fast, and when he traveled very fast, he got to Nov, meaning Yerushalayim, and then he stopped. He didn't go in that day. We're going to see why. That was his error. So now the Gemara is just going to go to the pasuk and try to analyze the locations. It says that like this. It says hold on. Okay, so he said like this. Hani Tuva Havinan, there's more than 10. If you count in the pasuk, there seems to be, I didn't go through each one of the locations, but locations seem to be more than 10 locations. So the Gemara answers, Sahali Koilech Bas Galim, that's not a place. That's Navi Yehuda Amr La Lekneses Yisrael, that the prophet was telling to the Jewish people, Sahali Koilech Bas Galim, cry with a shrill voice, daughter of Galim. Meaning to say, what does that mean? That Bita Shel Avram, that the daughter of Avram, Yitzchak and Yaakov, Sha'asu mitzvahs Kegali Hayom, that they did mitzvahs like the waves of the sea. Hakshivu Laisha, that says. So what does that mean? Mehai lav tisvi ela isvi min ruchanetzer harasha demislik arish nemer ala ari misubay. So it says like this. The pasuk continues. Hakshiva Laisha. Laisha is a lion. So it says mehai tisvi. From this one, you don't have to be worried. It means cry out. You don't have to worry about. Sanhedrin is running. I don't know if they had information, but Sanhedrin is running with at a pace of 10 travels in one day, and so the prophet says, cry out, but don't worry. From him, you're not going to have to be worried, but you do have to be worried about. You have to fear Nebuchadnezzar Russia, which is also like a lion. Like it says that the lion is going to go up. So it says again. Sorry, so it's always there's some pieces missing in this Gemara. It says, let's just see Rashi. Rashi says, okay, honey, there was more than 12 places. I mean, he mentioned only 10. So he says, Navikari, Litali Koilech Baskal, Makshiva Lisha, Chashivi Beit Tlasa Baskal, Lisha, Anusasa, Hanu Lav Minachush Benaninu, the Naviu to Karmel Listrom. Again, I mean to say a lot of these places are not locations, but more the prophet's telling him that you don't have to be worried about the lion, meaning Sanhedrin, but you have to be worried later about the Nebuchadnezzar. He says, "My laita sifushin tinatzam yadi." You don't have to be worried. Why? Because you're going to be saved from Sanhedrin. That's what it says. Tzali koilech al asfi. Pray and shrill, but don't be nervous. But min Nebuchadnezzar shnim shel Elisha t'chsiv be'alei ari mesuviv. But from the lion, which is Nebuchadnezzar, you do have to be worried. Hanu dekamer takshiv Elisha, to listen. So you see, let's go further. He says, "My." What does this mean? We're going to turn the page. Sorry, guys. We have to turn the page by turning to page 795a. So he says, let's go to the top. Next page. So he says, what's my aniya anasasai? What does this mean? Aniya is from the word poverty. So Asid Yirmiyahu ben Chilkiyahu misnavi Allah mi anasasais. He's going to say prophecy from anasasais, like it says, that he's in Anasais, is a location that he's going to prophesize that Nebuchadnezzar is going to come to destroy Jerusalem. Means you don't have to worry about Sanhedrin, which about close to 100 years before he did not destroy Jerusalem, but you will have to worry about Nebuchadnezzar, which is going to destroy Yerushalayim. Let's go. So the Gemara says, "Mi dami hasam ari hachelayish." What's the comparison? There it says that Nebuchadnezzar is like a lion. And here we're saying that Sanhedrin is a layish. It doesn't say what a layish is, but the Gemara seems to understand that layish does not initially not to mean a lion. So he says, the Gemara says, Amar Rebbe Yechon says, Shisha Shem Yiseish La'ari, the 6 names to a lion. And these are the 6 names that a lion has. Ari, Kfir, Lavi we know. Layish, Shachal, and Shachatz. I never have heard of. I'm only familiar with Ari and Levi. But there's evidently Ari, Kfir, Lavi, Layish, Shachal, Shachatz are 6 names that are a lion. Ihachi Batzruhu. So the Gemara says, if so, then there are too few locations, because now we just took out a lot of the locations. We said that it wasn't, it means the travels that Sanhedrin did. The Gemara says he did 10, Rav Huna said. But we just took a lot of the pasuk and it wasn't locations. It was more the Navi saying what you should be concerned with, what you shouldn't be concerned with, you should daven. The Gemara said, Avram Avra Tarte Ninu. Avram Avra is not one place, it's 2 different places. Okay. I'm not going to go into the details, but basically we see that that Sanhedrin traveled 10 travels on that day to attack Yerushalayim. And try to see if we could finish this story at least, to get into the next story, maybe next week about King David. So now the Gemara asked the question. So he traveled 10 travels and his army was destroyed. And he doesn't attack Yerushalayim. But first the Gemara says, the Gemara wants to know, what's my oid hayoim b'noiv lamoid? that this very day shall he halt at Nov. He's going to stop at Nov. So Amrav means he went 10 travels and he stopped at Nov. He didn't go in. Amrav, what does it mean, Nov? Nov again is the city of it's Yerushalayim, but it was called Nov in the time of Saul, that area at least, and that was the city or the location, the area where Saul killed all the Kohanim, all the priests. And so the Gemara Rav Huna says that until that point, there was we have a problem. We have a problem that there's never been accountability for the sin of Nov. And here we're going to learn an amazing thing that I'm just going to give a commentary in a second. That David didn't do anything. David, what's the story? Just quick to remind everyone the story. King Saul is fabulously jealous of David. David is already anointed. He knows that he's anointed. He doesn't know. He marries his daughter. The whole character of David is disturbing to Saul. He's a successful general. The women like him more than they like Saul. They praise David more than they praise Saul. He's more victorious. Whatever Saul does, David does much better. And he's able to marry his daughter because of the rewards that Saul offered for any great military victory. Would marry his daughter Michal bas Shaul. So he becomes his son-in-law, and according to most commentators, he knows that Samuel anointed David already. He lost the kingdom. He was told by Samuel to lose the kingdom. So he's insanely jealous of David, and he wants to kill David. David's hiding and running away from Saul. He goes to the city of Nov, and he hides by the Kohanim, by the priest. When he hides by the priest, and Doeg, the Adomi, tells Saul that David's hiding there. So instead of David, David runs away. He takes the sword from the Beis Hamikdash. So Achimelech, I think his name was. So he's Achimelech or Elimelech. He lets him. So Saul comes in and kills the whole city, kills all the priests. Now David seemingly didn't do anything. It's Saul's problem or Doeg's problem, but God doesn't look at it that way. God looks at David's participation in the story. Don't confuse me with the facts. The story happened because you were running away. You were the reason why Saul behaved this way. So it's almost like blaming David a bit for Saul's deeds. So that's what Rav Huna says. We have to. The question is, what's the question? What's this have to do with King Hezekiah? Hezekiah is a descendant of David. This is a problem that happened with Saul. So they said no, that the sin of Nov is still around. Omri Lake Kaldoi. So his astrologist told Sanhedrin, and they knew that. If you go now, you have until today. The sin of Nov is hanging over, so to say, the necks of the house of David. But after that, it expires. Therefore, he was able to travel fast. What we were able to do what should have taken 10 days, he traveled in one day because he only had this opportunity, according to his astrologist, to attack Yerushalayim. Just a side commentary goes into the question: why was the sin of Nov so long sitting there? What happened? Why? And also, why would it expire today? So, according to some of the commentators, and I'm not sure which commentary it is over here, it says that the problem was that when he killed so many of the Kohanim, there was pashut a lack of priests to perform the service. He mamish wiped out the descendants of Aaron. There was very few priests to do the service. So the regular service on a day-to-day basis was okay, because there's small amounts, but he had big days like Pesach. They were mamish affected because there weren't enough Kohanim. We learned from the laws and the Mishnah of how many Kohanim had to be involved in the service of Pesach. It was very complicated. You had very few hours to do everyone's sacrifice, even if you had groups on one sheep. So it was the Kohanim, it stood there as a thorn that there was a lack of service. And why today? That what we all know. When was the day that Sanhedrin fell? It was on Pesach. He fell on Pesach, so that year it took them 250 years, whatever the amount of time is. I'm just giving a guess between King Saul and King Hezekiah. Let's say it's about 250 years. It took that long for them to get the numbers back up of the priests, and because that night was Pesach, and there was in the first time since the story of Saul that there was going to be enough priests for the service. That night, the so to say the weight of the sin of Nov would leave, because God would say, okay, now all the Kohanim are back. But until that point, until that night, there was still that thorn of the lack of Kohanim in the priest. It's a very interesting concept. So that's why he had to get there on that day. He says, I'm just going to read the Rashis. He says, we'll go a little further. It says, Oisa Yom Nishtar Mavoin Shal Noiv. Why? Shahayilem Yisrael Al Shnahargu Kahayne Noiv. There was a kitrug. There was voices of negativity on the Jewish people of what happened when they killed the priest of Nov. God said that up until that day, there was that sin kind of hung over the Jewish people, and there was only that day left. Like I said, according to the commentators, it makes sense that the Kohanim, the numbers went up, and that's why that night was Pesach, and they had enough Kohanim to do the service. And Rashi says, had Sennacherib not stopped, it says, he's only going to come to Nov, he's not going to attack it. His Kaifshe would have captured it. He only had until that day. So he says like this. Let's read. He says the riff from Rabbi Steinsaltz. It is asked, what is the connection between Nov and the residents of Judah and Jerusalem? The question we asked, what did they do wrong? Furthermore, David himself was punished for the sin of Nov, indicating that the punishment for the sin has not been delayed. So we're going to learn now that David himself had a private punishment from God for what happened in Nov. Meaning, again, David didn't do anything, but David was the cause of it. It can be explained that the sin of Nov had and consisted of two components. There were those who were involved in the massacre in some manner. In other words, Saul, David, Doeg. David, he says, in some manner because he was part of the story, or who themselves or who the descendants were punished for the part of the sin in Nov. In addition, there were the tribes of Israel adjacent to Nov, whose liability stemmed from their failure to protect and prevent Saul's action. Why didn't anyone say anything? No one protested. Everyone just watched that Saul came in and destroyed the city of Nov. These tribes, who are the tribes that were there? They include the tribes of David, meaning Judah, and the tribes of Saul, which is Benjamin. And Benjamin and Judah are the two tribes of the south. Since Jerusalem was divided between the tribal lands of Judah and Benjamin, Jerusalem bore a degree of liability for the sin of Nov. Okay, so therefore the city of Nov was kind of sitting over Yerushalayim, and therefore Yerushalayim was going to have to pay for it. So let's just go quickly. So Kimati Yerushalayim, so he comes to Yerushalayim and he travels fast, right? Shadile Bistarke Ad Salik Viesev Mi'ile Shura. They put up like cushions so he could see into the city. He wanted to see what he was running towards. Ad Chazi Lekul Yerushalayim, when he sees the whole Yerushalayim, Kichazi Azuter Be'enei, when he saw Jerusalem, he says, this is Jerusalem, this is what I was chasing. It's always the question, Yerushalayim fascinates people, but at the end, it's a small city. He says, this is what I was running after. Amar Alei he karta the Yerushalayim da Allah argishis kol mashriyasi. This is what he says, is this the city of Jerusalem from which I have disrupted all my camps, for which I have conquered? He's like, he's going after Vala Kavish Kol Medinas. I captured all the countries. He's the Kavishins b'Taik V'Yadi. Jerusalem is nothing compared to it. He conquered huge dynasties. He was unimpressed with Yerushalayim. What was he running towards? So he went up and shook his head. That's what it says in the pasuk. And he waved his hand at the temple and the Temple Mount and at Jerusalem at Zion. He was very disappointed at what he was running towards. He thought that it didn't warrant this kind of hasty advance. So he says, hold on, Aaron, just going to finish over here. Okay, yeah. This finishes this sugya here. Amrei, he said, Nishte be yada ha'idna. So they said to him, meaning his generals or whatever, his people, said, maybe Shavna, he said, let's attack. Okay, we came here, let's attack. Amalu, he said to them, Tamhisu, you're weary, you're tired. He goes, tomorrow each one of you will bring me a stone from the wall. He said, no, he wasn't, the whole urgency left him. That was his mistake. He waited one day too long, and came the angel down on that night. Like I said, it was the night of Pesach. That's why we sing the song Vahi B'Chatzia Laila. That's the song that we sing on the night of Pesach. God came down. The angel of God came down and struck the camp of Assyria. Meya Shmainim v'chamisha elef. It says 100 and Meya Shmainim v'chamisha 185,000. According to some opinions, not even 185,000 soldiers, but 185,000 regiments of soldiers. It was a tremendous size army. That you can imagine why he felt a little cheated by running down there. And then when the Jews woke up in the morning, and that's going back to what we said before, that the prophet said they should take from the spoils, the old dead bodies, that's why people say, about waiting. So it says that bas dina batal dina, that if you're going to let a quarrel, a fight delay, then it's going to be nullified. That means if you don't take action now, it's going to be nullified, and that's basically what happened. He didn't conquer Yerushalayim that night. The decree of Nov was finished. And we're going to learn now. The next Gemara tomorrow, we're going to learn. Next week, we're going to learn about David's punishment for Nov. The story with Yishbi, and Yishbi was Goliath's brother, also a giant of a man, evidently the cousin of David. He was the son of Orpah. Orpah was the sister-in-law of Naomi, and of Ruth, and daughter-in-law of Naomi. So this Rashi says that they were tired. They were too tired because they were wary of traveling 10 travels in one day. So it says Gomu. It says Chaticha Shalchayim Lashon Parsi. Gomu Hareg means it's in a Persian way of saying they're going to take a stone. So what's Basdina Batal Dina? Given Shalon Dina, if you can let us a judgment rest, Batal Hariv. By then there's going to be the issue is going to be dissolved. Because he didn't conquer on that day, it was too late for him to try to conquer it the next day. Aaron, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, didn't he know how important the city he was running toward
He
is
did.
or was?
He did and he didn't. He had this idea of Jerusalem, but when he looked at Jerusalem, he didn't understand it. Understand? He heard about Jerusalem. Sometimes you hear from something from a distance. He heard about Jerusalem. He was pushed towards Jerusalem, but at the end, when push comes to shove, it didn't sit with him. The whole story of Yerushalayim, he didn't understand it. He didn't understand what he was attacking. He didn't understand what he was rushing towards. And in the end, that was his. I mean, for instance, the whole story is this pressure, right? His stargazers say you have to go. You have until today, and you conquered. He runs 10 paces. He's obsessed with gaining Jerusalem, and he sees Jerusalem. He feels let down, and maybe that's the secret of Yerushalayim. People who don't appreciate the city. Like this is an issue that we're dealing with thousands of years. We're still dealing with the question of Yerushalayim. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Laila Tov. Thank you for joining, Sirs Tavis, and everyone should be safe. Take care.